Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive into left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. November.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. My God did it, man. I really just had
Gonna have to. Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Eight in a row. The Knicks beat the Wizards last night. Let's talk about it. We're going to get right into it. This game was close for about 3 quarters before the Knicks started to pull away late in the third. Towns and Mikal and Brunson got the Knicks, or they kept the Knicks in it in the first quarter. Second quarter, though, it was all Josh Hart. And that's what most of this episode is going to be about. Josh Hart, big time second quarter, gets the Knicks going. Third quarter, you finally get some 3-pointers to drop from OG Anunoby, who had been struggling from 3. And then the fourth quarter comes and Towns puts the game to bed. Josh Hart still impacting the game, even if his shot wasn't as consistent in the second half. And so the Knicks win 126-106 over the Wizards. Towns with another quiet 30-point double-double. Josh Hart, again, we will get to him, triple-double. OG Anunoby, a nice bounce back with 18 and 8. And I thought the Knicks bench was solid, especially Deuce and Precious. Brunson and Mikal more on the quiet side, but a good win overall. And so the Red Hot Knicks, again, have won 8 games in a row now. They're also 18-4 in their last 22 games. They're 23-10 overall on the season, which has the Knicks at a win percentage of just about 700. So that's where you want to be. If you really want to take over or jump Boston in the standings, you're probably going to have to play over 700 ball. Right now, they're 3.5 up over Orlando. So that number keeps improving. And they're just a half game back from Boston. So it's getting really interesting. Thanks to a really easy month of December schedule-wise. But the Knicks took care of it. That's what you got to do. You got to stack up wins against the lower tier teams. And, now we get these December Knicks. Last year was the January Knicks. And hopefully this December Knicks team can become even greater in January, if that makes any sense at all. But, yeah, it was like the month of Josh Hart. It really was. He explodes. And then, what was it, last January? It was mainly it was OG, the Brunson moments, but they go on a 9-game win streak in January. But this Knicks team, I think they went 11-2 in the month of December. So, but like I said, you're going to get a whole lot of Josh Hart specifics in this episode. That's what this episode is going to be about. Because there's not much else to talk about in a blowout win against the Wizards. Which is why I'm kind of happy the schedule is going to toughen up a bit in this upcoming month of January here. But let's get into it. Just a little preface here. I am battling a bit of a cold. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm not going to sound my best. Excuse me for that. kind of losing my voice a bit. So if this episode is on the shorter side too, that's why. But man, let's just get right into it. Let's start with Josh Hart because he obviously gets the game ball from last night. Josh Hart, 23 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 4 3-pointers made, knocked down 5 free throws. He was a plus 25 in 41 minutes. He now has 5 game balls. It's funny, man, because, I was joking with my brother and my cousin, who's staying over, that, like, Josh Hart, we've called him here, like, a Draymond Green type without the nonsense. I've also been joking that he's like Walmart LeBron. He's like Walmart LeBron. He's our version of LeBron James, where he just does everything with good defense on top of all that. Like how many guys, like he's averaging 14, 9, and 6 on the year now. You put that out there with everything he does defensively. How many other role players in the NBA have numbers like that? And like what he does for this Knicks team, like a lot of the casual Knicks fans, you'll hear them say, "Oh, I love Josh Hart. The heart and energy and hustle and grit is awesome." Like that's all nice. I get that. But like it's also skill. You don't get to be one of the best role players in the NBA without elite skills in certain aspects of the game. Like for example, his ability, like if you watch Josh Hart go after a rebound. Watch him go after an offensive rebound. His ability to go after a rebound like that and then maintain enough balance to hang on to the ball and stay in bounds after grabbing a rebound in traffic versus multiple bigger bodies, that's a skill. He does that multiple times a night, where he's going after loose balls and he's still able to maintain balance and then get the pass off as he's falling out of bounds. And then just to go coast to coast like he can, that's, you got to have athleticism. You got to have good reads on a defense to be able to make the passes he does in transition. And you have to have skill to finish at the cup like he can when he's going coast to coast. The way he can create certain angles to get the ball off the glass and fall. It's skill. So he drops 23, 15, and 10 last night. Another triple-double for him. The playmaking it remains terrific. And we'll talk more. We're going to get into the real specifics about, the Josh Hart versus when the defense puts a big on him scheme. We'll get to that in a minute. But like just the playmaking, I want to acknowledge that, how good it is. Middle of the second quarter, just one of the more impressive cross-court passes you're going to see. And that's like Josh Hart in a nutshell. Does things you might not always love, but like he makes a really nice play out of a Gator option where it's Josh Hart and Karl Towns as the only 2 guys on the strong side. And then it's Campaign and Landry Shamet on the weak side. Towns sets the empty ball screen for Josh Hart. That gets the SAR switch. And then Shamet at the same time sets a weak side corner pin on Coulibaly to open up Campaign on the corner, who's next to him. And then Cam's also wide open because you've got Justin Champagnie in low man help. And then off that pick and roll, Hart just makes an impressive as hell cross-court pass to Campaign, and he gets an easy 3-point look in which he knocks down. Hart's on the left wing and Campaign's on the weak side corner, and he gets that pass off so quickly off that empty ball screen. Late second quarter, Hart, you get him playmaking off of a rejected pick and roll on the right wing where he fakes use of the Precious Achiuwa screen by hesitating left to create separation from Carrington, who I hope is okay, by the way. And with Malcolm Brogdon ball watching McHale. He's supposed to be on McHale. He's ball watching this on the weak side. McHale cuts off of that, and then Hart finds McHale for an easy look at the basket. Just going to go through a few things here. Late third quarter, it's a simple drive and kick off of a collapsing defense, but again, Hart in transition. He's going coast to coast, and McHale's the trailer on the right wing, and because Hart has so much gravity on his drives when he gets downhill like this, it collapses the entire Washington Wizards defense. So now McHale's pretty open on the right wing. Hart kicks to him for an easy catch-and-shoot look in which he knocks down. Late fourth quarter, you get another Hart-Towns empty side pick and roll. This time, Koulibaly's on Hart and Sarr's on Cat. So there was, it was a traditional matchup. There was no switch off the ball screen either. And Cat throws it down on Sarr. So just the playmaking is just, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and on Knicks Fan TV, CP's consistently calling Hart their second point guard. And I always love when he says that, because it just makes so much sense. He really is. I know the Knicks don't have a second creator off of Brunson, but if there was one, it's Josh Hart, because he's able to do that in stints. But I do want to talk more about the whole, Washington Wizards and the scheming that you're seeing from certain switch defenses where they put the big on Hart. And I want to talk about that and how the Knicks are able to beat it with Hart's playmaking, screening, cutting, and shooting. So I want to get to that when we return from our first break here on BD4. So let's do that in just a sec. We'll be right back. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment, and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. Okay, welcome back to the show. The Knicks beat the Wizards 126-106 last night in DC. Again, lately we've spent a lot of time talking about one specific defensive scheme, right? And that's the scheme that gives the Knicks the most issues offensively when they're playing switching defenses that put the big to Josh Hart to neutralize the pick and roll, and they put the wing or a small on Towns to neutralize the pick and pop. The Knicks have to figure this out consistently. And I thought, while there were moments against Orlando, and there were moments late in the game against the Wizards the first time, last night was really probably the best I've seen the Knicks attack this scheme. I thought they did a very nice job of it. Firstly, I thought Josh Hart took the open three-point looks that were given to him. I think that's where we have to start. Hart was very aggressive with the open space allowed on the three-point line, whether it was Valanciunas on him or Sarr on him. They were ignoring him, right? Early in the second quarter, Valanciunas completely ignores Josh Hart on the right elbow. He knocks down a triple and catch and shoot. A few minutes later, he does the same thing. Valanciunas ignores him on the left wing. Hart knocks it down and catch and shoot. The very next time down, Valanciunas gives him space again on the same wing. Hart steps back and he knocks it down. In the second half, he did cool off from three, but I like the fact that he kept taking those threes with the open space given to him. So that's the first thing you need to point out. It's just that he's taking those open looks and he's not hesitating or passing off. And that's what it comes from. It's all about the confidence. getting him to have that confidence. He needs to keep taking them when he's left open. That's going to help him thrive going forward. But, it's also beating this scheme by using Josh Hart and using Towns in ways that we discussed in the last couple episodes, right? Bringing Josh Hart into the action, using Karl Towns on the post, using the weak side off the help. So in the middle of the first quarter, there was a possession where the Knicks brought Josh Hart into screen pick and roll. That brought Valanciunas to the level, right? The Knicks run a Brunson Hart high 1-4 short pick and roll. Hart rolls short with a wide open paint. And now Brogdon's forced to help off the weak side corner where OG is standing. And OG now makes a weak side cut off the help. Hart finds OG for an easy look. Middle of the third quarter, the Knicks attempt to screen with Hart again, but this time Washington pre-switches it. However, the Knicks make that read and they counter with a Brunson Towns pick and roll, which draws attention because of their gravity. So now Hart makes a weak side cut. Brunson finds Hart, and Hart finds Towns cutting down low. I thought the Knicks did a really nice job of using Towns post-ups to get Hart to get easy looks. Early in the second quarter, the Knicks generate a very easy second side cut from Josh Hart with Towns on the post. It begins with Cam Payne and Deuce McBride faking DHO on the right wing. Cam then dumps down the entry to Towns on the post against Champagnie. Valanciunas helps off Hart from the weak side and onto Cat as he posts up. And now Hart makes the weak side cut off the help. Cat goes to Hart for an easy layup. Late in the second quarter, the Knicks post Cat Towns on a mismatch again where Towns is posting Champagnie once again and Sarr once again is guarding Hart weak side. He brings backside help to Towns, and instead of dumping it down to Towns on the low post, this time the Knicks force the Wizards into weak side rotation with perimeter ball movement. And so OG now gets an easy corner look weak side because of the initial help that was brought onto Towns. Middle of the fourth quarter, a very similar idea by posting Towns on a small, but it went slightly differently. The Knicks post Towns on the mismatch. Sarr, guarding Hart weak side again, brings soft help to Towns, but this time the Knicks pass to Hart on the perimeter, one pass over, and now they wait for Sarr to recover back to Hart. And once the pass is made and once Sarr recovers back to Hart, that's when Towns slips the post into a roll with no rim help, and then Hart hits Towns for an easy lob. So multiple ways where the Knicks were able to counter. They were able to counter that scheme where you see defenses switch the big to Josh Hart. And overall, when they play real defenses, defenses that aren't the Washington Wizards, that's going to tell the true story. We've talked about this, Boston, Cleveland, Orlando when they're fully healthy. That's when you're going to see, right? And they play OKC in a few days. And I think the best way, though, to beat this scheme is just keep getting Hart into the action. Keep bringing him into the action as a screener. That's the way to do it. You got to keep involving him. Using him as a corner spacer is not going to help you in these situations. It's going to slow down your offense. It's going to destroy the spacing. It's going to neutralize your pick and roll. But using Hart in the action as a screener is huge. And of course, Towns is a very important piece in this. Using him as a decoy on the post, yes. In Towns, speaking of, continues to quietly dominate. If Hart wasn't as great as he was last night, Towns is probably the best player in this game. It's funny because it didn't feel like it for a bit, but then you look up, and this is often with Towns sometimes. I don't want to say often, but you see this sometimes with Towns. It's like, oh yeah, he's pretty dominant. 32 points, 13 rebounds. He was 13 for 16 from 2, 6 of 7 at the foul line. And it didn't feel like that, but he's just able to quietly dominate, and he's out there He's punishing switches on the post off pick and roll, shooting jumpers over smalls and tough finishes at the basket over those mismatches. Pick and roll finishes as a roller. He's driving closeouts and driving mismatches well. And he's helping the Knicks on the offensive rebounds. Just continues to quietly dominate while Josh Hart does his thing very loudly, and just another great performance from Karl Anthony Towns, who probably deserves to start in the All-Star game. I don't care whose name you want to throw out there. I think Karl Towns is probably the most deserving in the Eastern Conference. So, you go to the bench, and I think the best player off the bench was Deuce McBride. It wasn't an outstanding performance, but Deuce McBride, 8 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, got off to a very slow start where he gave the Knicks absolutely nothing offensively in the first half, just missing way too many easy looks that he needs to be knocking down. But he came alive in the second half, comes into the game late in the third quarter, plays the whole fourth quarter, or a good chunk of the fourth quarter, and he did his thing. And Deuce McBride now has got 18 game balls to lead the Knicks. Deuce, I think, hit some important shots there in the second half, so good to see him and OG Anunoby get going from 3 as they've been struggling lately. But speaking of Deuce, I want to touch real briefly on this second unit rotation. I think it's getting... Did I have OG's face there I just saw? No, for some reason I thought the graphic showing on the screen was OG Anunoby's face. It was Deuce. Okay. Let me just fix this. Okay, we're good. This second unit rotation is something that... Now the camera's unfocused. That's good. Let's see if we can fix this. Never knew how to... I don't know why it does this. I'm going to pause the recording real quick. All right, we're good. Hopefully it wasn't unfocused for a while because I don't have the camera on. I'm looking at my notes here. I'm not looking on the software that I'm using. I'm not looking at that. But I think we're good now. This is for those listening or watching on YouTube. The second unit rotation, man, it's been a conversation lately. Knicks Twitter's going, of course, insane because all they care about is minutes and not wins. But, Tibbs is basically running an 8.5. And this means the wings are continuing to log a ton of minutes. Lately, the only 2 Knicks to really see second half minutes have been Deuce and Precious. Last night, you did see a few minutes at the top of the fourth quarter with Landry Shamet getting those minutes. But it's been an interesting mishmash that Tibbs has been balancing in interesting ways, where Deuce doesn't check in the second half until very late in the third quarter, and you continue to see now Campaign kind of just remain on the bench totally in the second half. He only got 7 first half minutes, didn't play once again in the second half. And I just think the thought process with Tom Thibodeau remains the same. We talked a little bit about it last episode where he wants size. He's always been a guy who prefers size. He wants the guys that he trusts the most out there, the most of the time. And I saw this was a good point I saw on Twitter last night. Somebody put it out there. I can't remember who. It's possible that he's sending a message to the front office, right? That like, hey, I need another veteran body that I can trust to spare my wings. It doesn't need to be, it's not going to be a major move because the Knicks can't afford a major move, but it just needs to be a move that lightens the load on the wings. And how can they do this? I mean, it's simple. They're going to have to, and I think it's going to happen, they're going to have to trade Mitch's salary to get another wing. It's a very tradable salary, but I think moving Mitch to get either another wing or a bigger wing, like a stretch big type, who can space and defend and drop. I thought Dorian Finney-Smith would have been a great move, but obviously he's off the market now, although, he can be moved. So either another wing or a bigger wing stretch type who can space and defend drop. I think that's the best way to go. I don't think Mitch is best fit here anymore. It's just when he's healthy, if he gets healthy, it's really tough to play him any real minutes while at the same time avoiding those Mitch Towns minutes. When Mitch, especially if they want to keep Precious in the mix when Mitch returns, it's going to be hard to avoid any of that. When Mitch is with Towns, it's going to be the same issue we've been talking about forever. When Mitch is with Precious and when Hart's out there sometimes, like, it takes the big man off of Towns. And you don't want that. That takes away the entire idea of this Towns trade, which is about spacing and the Knicks pick and roll attack. So I also don't think Mitchell Robinson returning is going to solve any of these issues where we're trying to spare these wings some rest, right? The Knicks have big man depth. The Knicks they're not deep at wing on the bench. Like, all their wing depth is in the starting five, right? They've got a point, they've got three wings, they've got a big. So they need to go after a bigger wing type player to spare these guys rotation minutes here. But overall, it's not, as I've said, it's not something I've been going crazy about because I do think it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen and Tibbs continues to run these guys 40 plus late in the season, and the Knicks have already clinched pretty good positioning in the Eastern Conference, then yeah, that's a different conversation. But as of now, it's just something I kind of look past and expect to be figured out via trade. But we'll see. So with that said, I think that's everything we have on this Wizards game. The Knicks will now be going back home to the Garden to take on the Jazz, who they did lose to last time when they went to Salt Lake. But this will be a New Year's Day game at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. It's kind of the last garbage team of this garbage stretch. Thank God the Knicks will have some actual competition ahead in January. It's a month I'm looking forward to. You don't really get much answers when you play competition that's so poor this consistently. But now there's a big test ahead, to see if the Knicks are really this elite team. There are some games on the schedule in this month of January that you can circle. Obviously, take care of Utah first, but you look ahead, you're in OKC on Friday night, right? That's probably the best team in the league right now with great defense and great offense, although they are a very poor three-point shooting team. They get a lot of three-point looks off, which has been something the Knicks don't limit. So you're in OKC on Friday. You're home against Orlando on Monday. So you play them one more time. I wonder if Paolo will be back then. You're home versus OKC next Friday. So you play them again. You're home versus the Milwaukee Bucks on the 12th. That's a game I'm actually going to be going to as a Christmas gift for my parents. Thank you. And Milwaukee's played a lot better since earlier in the year. On the 15th of January, the Knicks are in Philadelphia. They've gotten themselves back into play-in conversation. So good for them. That's cute. But it's something, Knicks Philly, you're always going to circle that. They've got their rematch against the Wolves on the 17th. That's at the Garden. And then they're home at the Garden versus Atlanta on the 20th. I would love nothing more than to beat that team and just quiet this fake media hype. They're always trying to make this a thing, like this Trae Young thing, a thing. When it's not a thing, the guy is 7-14 against the Knicks in his career. He shoots 40%. He takes a ton of shots to get these points against the Knicks. He's never been great against the Knicks outside of the fake COVID playoffs. The real storyline when the Knicks play the Hawks should be Brunson struggles versus Dyson Daniels, right? But the media doesn't want to do that because the media doesn't break down any actions and they don't analyze the details of the game. But that's the reason the Knicks are 0-2 against the Hawks this year, is because Brunson cannot figure out that Dyson Daniels assignment. Dyson Daniels defending the point of attack really gives Brunson problems, and the Knicks need to figure that out. They're home against Memphis and Denver to wrap up the month of January, so 2 more top teams. So it's going to be a tougher month. But I'm not really looking at what the Knicks record needs to be this month. That's not something I'm looking at. I'm looking at these certain matchups. I need to see the Knicks beat some of these tougher teams. That'll tell me a lot more about this Knicks team. So it's nice that they finally found some balance here, and they're finally in a rhythm again, and they've got a good position in the standings, and the record now looks pretty. That's good. But I really need to, if you really want to talk to me about this Knicks team being a legitimate contender, a finals contender at that, I need to see what they look like in some of these matchups in January. So that's what's next. But with that said, we're going to head to our final break and wrap this up with our trivia when we return here on BD4, episode 770 of the podcast. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Stay connected with us. Visit BD4blog.com to explore our blog, tune into our latest podcasts, and follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of this community. Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 770 of the podcast. The Knicks win over the Wizards 126-106. With that said, we're going to wrap this up with our trivia question of the day. All right, so our trivia question for this episode here. Where in Knicks history does Josh Hart land in total triple doubles? All right, where in Knicks history does Josh Hart land in total triple doubles? So that's our trivia for this episode. And that's it for this episode. I appreciate you all tuning in. I'm going to wrap this up. My voice is going by the second. So appreciate you all tuning in as always. And I'll see you in the next episode. I'm going to try to get some Yankees in. You know, there's been a lot of chirping between what their next move is. So I'll try to get some Yankees in soon if I can. But as for the Knicks, I'll see you after this next game against the Jazz tomorrow night. Later. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast. And I will see you in the next episode of BD4.